Welcome to Horns Up. I'm Animesh, and Peter, I'm going to straight up ask you what makes the ocean fucking awesome?
So if it was any other band, I would have a response for you. But with this, I'm kind of speechless because there's like a lot I can say about the ocean and keep going on. At the same time, if I don't say anything, also that'll be enough. But yeah, man, I mean, there's something about their sound, uh, the production also that they have, and it's really hard to describe a band like theirs because having listened to that discography, you can't say that there are two albums that are like every album has its own kind of sound, their own kind of production, and they just keep topping themselves. And I'm going to stop blabbing there.
Hmm. Is it right for me to say that what you've said right now is just one tiny drop in the vast majority of thoughts that you have for the ocean?
Yes, I knew this was coming, but I'm going
Yeah,
to
it's a
agree
really
with you.
bad attempt at humor. And for those of you who got the joke, you can reach out to me. I'm at Asmoani on Twitter. No, wait. We are not doing that. It's not the end of the show yet. Anyways, coming back on track. Yes, fans of the German band will know that the new album, Phanerozoic II, Mesozoic and Cenozoic, releases next week. We had a chance to talk to founding member Robin Staps around a month back. And the only reason we're releasing this conversation now is to try and get the conversation as close to the album release as possible so that you guys can get a bit more context when you're spinning the album. So consider it like almost like an early gift of sorts. Let's fucking go. And now from the ocean, it's Robin Staps. Hi, Robin. Welcome to Horns Up. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So let's begin with some chat about the new album, Phanerozoic II. This is a very open ended question, and I'd like you to take us through as many aspects here as possible. How does this album build on what we've already heard on Phanerozoic 1?
Well, it's the direct continuation of Phanerozoic 1 in a conceptual way, and also musically. It kind of like continues where the first part left off, but then ventures into entirely different territories. We decided to keep the more experimental, more progressive, more daring material, if you want so, for the second part, because we wanted the first part to have this very streamlined feel to it. Most of the songs have similar tempos and just a continuous vibe from the beginning to the end of the record. That was the paradigms that we set for ourselves with that album. And the second part is a lot more eclectic musically. It's going through a larger variety of different styles, tempos, and song structures, including some of the most complicated tracks I ever wrote, and also very long songs, and also some very straightforward, more minimalist, thinned out, spaced out tracks on the second half of the record. So both records are musically quite different, but if you listen to them in a sequence, to the first part first and then to the second part all the way from the beginning to the end, then I think it all makes sense. It's a journey that starts in one place and ends in a place that you wouldn't necessarily expect when you listen to the beginning of Phanerozoic 1, or even when you listen to the beginning of Phanerozoic 2 still. But if you have listened through, then I think it all makes sense, basically. And conceptually, obviously, the second part of the Phanerozoic continues the Phanerozoic album concept, this paleontological theme that we have chosen, basically continuing where Precambrian left off already in 2007. That's where Phanerozoic 1 continued. And Phanerozoic 2 covers the geological eras of Mesozoic and Cenozoic, which is the second half of the Phanerozoic, which is the eon we currently live in.
Yep.
And what happened during the Mesozoic is that after the Great Dying, which was the last track of Phanerozoic 1, life resurged on Earth slowly, and eventually this asteroid hit the Yucatan Peninsula and nowadays Mexico some 65 million years ago, and again wiped out all life on Earth, including the dinosaurs, which is what most people know this for. And this is the core of the record, basically, and especially the track Jurassic Cretaceous. This collision with the asteroid basically ended the Mesozoic era and inaugurated the Cenozoic era, which is the time we currently still live in. And we're approaching that planetary collision theme in the artwork and in a lot of the lyrics on the record, taken to the human level, obviously, because that happened 65 million years ago when there was no humanity, even in its infancy, there was nothing. And when you write lyrics, obviously you want to, make it relevant for people. So we kind of transfer this idea, this impending planetary collision, to a human level, and referencing Lars von Trier's Melancholia movie thereby, which has exactly that as the topic of the movie, basically.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for the long, detailed answer. So I'm sure this question would have been asked to you at some point in time, but before starting work on Phanerozoic itself, both parts 1 and 2, did you already know that there would be a second part as such to the album? Essentially, did the music and the idea for both parts, did it come to you together before you began working on the first album in the first place?
Before we began recording, the answer is yes, absolutely. When we started recording the Phanerozoics, we knew it was going to be 2 records already. And we tracked drums for both albums together in one single session in early 2018. So by that time, we already knew that we were going to release it in 2 separate parts. But the material itself was written over the course of 3 summers, which must have been 2015, 16, and 17, I believe. So it's interesting that some of the material is already 5 years old by now, but there's always this delay between writing and releasing an album. For us, it takes a long time, also because of our heavy touring schedules. And we recorded drums for both albums in early 2018 in Iceland. Then we focused on finishing the first part, which was released in late 2018. And during the year 2019, we were pretty much on the road most of the year. Started in India with 5 shows, and then went to Australia, New Zealand, and then European summer festivals. And then this extensive tour of Armenia, Georgia, Kazakhstan, Russia, and Japan. And then we toured with Leprous in Europe. So we were out the whole year, and we were struggling to find time to finish the second part because only the drums were recorded at that point, and we kind of recorded the remaining guitars throughout the year, and the last bass parts and vocal parts we actually recorded on this tour with Leprous in November last year, literally a week or 2 before we entered the studio to mix the record. So there was great time pressure, but I think it helped us focus. And we took a bit of a different approach with that record and our working method on it. With Phanerozoic 1 and pretty much all the previous records, I had a very clear idea of pretty much every detail of the record before we entered the studio. And for Phanerozoic 2, I left a lot of it open until much later stages in the making. And a lot of decision actually until the mix. And the record, that basically led to the record itself not really shaping up until the very end in the process. But when it did, it was very rewarding. And the good thing about it was that I wasn't too attached to my own pre-productions as I usually am. And then it's difficult to allow any other opinions to come in, because you've already worked with this for several months and you're so attached to that, but you don't really see if it's actually good or bad anymore. And so this time I didn't want to do that. I wanted to really leave that until the moment when we mix with Jens Bogren. And I wanted that to be the moment when everything comes together. And it did. And it did in a very rewarding and very positive way. And I'm very happy we tried it this way this time around, to just keep it interesting. If you just take the same approach with every record, you'll essentially get bored. So it was time to try something new. We did. And I think it was a success.
Okay. So, of course, everything seems to have worked out absolutely fine. But given a choice, would you have preferred to release these albums as a double album or maybe in close proximity to one another? Why or why not?
No, absolutely not. We took a conscious decision to not do it that way. We've done that with Heliocentric and Anthropocentric. They were both released in the same year in 2010. And back then I felt that Anthropocentric, which was released second, received a lot less attention than heliocentric, because it's just the nature how people, and especially press, are. A lot of magazines back then were telling us, oh, we've already featured you once in the year, we're not going to do it a second time. So anthropocentric drowned a little bit, and I didn't want to risk that again. And it's heavy material, not in terms of physical heaviness, but in terms of, like, it takes a long time to digest a track like Jurassic Cretaceous, for example. And I didn't want to overload people with information, too much information at the same time. This time around, I wanted to let our fans absorb the first record first fully and tour on it, and then give them the second part of the album, which again is a challenge, and a quite different one compared to the first part. And releasing all of that in one record, I don't think we would have done ourselves a favor. I think it would have just led to a lot of tracks on the second half not getting the attention they deserve.
All right. So we've spoken a little bit about the songwriting aspects as such on this new album. So let's delve a bit deeper into that. There's a lot going on in this new album. Different sonic landscapes from numerous genres, different textures, more electronics. It's a lot more playful in that manner. Why did you choose to push the sonic boundaries that we heard on part one on this album? Why was it necessary?
Well, it wasn't really necessary. We could have just done another record like part one, but as I mentioned before, we need to keep this interesting for ourselves, and we also like to do that for our fans. And usually when you explore a certain set of paradigms with one record and you're done with it, then you're really keen to just do something else, and to write different songs. But I have to say here, most of the material was already written, as I said, when we started recording. So it's just that it wasn't a conscious choice, like we're going to make one record that is like that and then another record that is going to be like that. It's that we had all this material and it kind of naturally fell into place. It was clear that like those 6 or 7 songs were definitely going to be on part one, because they kind of belonged together. They were all written in the same year, and they had this consistency, and they felt like this has to be together. And then there was all the other material, and for all the other material, I didn't really have the big picture initially. I just knew that they wouldn't fit on part one, so we left them for part two. And then we weeded out a bunch of stuff that didn't really seem fit, but then there was like the core tracks left that made it onto this record, and they had a totally different aesthetic of their own, but they were already there. It was not a conscious choice we took. It was just like looking at the material we had written and then finding the appropriate way to release it and putting together what fits together, rather than releasing 2 records that are just tiring, because they're jumping from one mood into the next with every track, and I don't like to do that. I like to have a record be something that sucks you in at the beginning of the record and doesn't let go of you until the very end of it. And I think both of these albums do that, but in very different ways.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about some of the guest vocalists on this record. Once again, you have Catatonia's Jonas Renksay, and you also have Breach, the vocalist from Breach, Thomas Liljedal. I don't know, I probably would have butchered that surname.
Liljedal would be the
okay.
Liljedal, yeah. Swedish
all right.
name.
So how was the collaboration process as such with them, working with them and getting their voices and their vocal textures, etc., to fit onto your soundscape?
Well, we've worked with Thomas a number of times. This is actually the 4th record of ours that he is guesting on. He was on Aeolian back in 2006 already. He was on Precambrian, and he was on Pelagial. So it's the 4th time.
Yeah.
We knew what we would get from him. I've been a massive Breach fan all of my life, basically, and they were probably one of the most important bands for me growing up as a guitar player and a musician.
So did you write the songs that you did that featured them for them, or knowing that you would get them to do the vocals?
No, none of them. I started becoming friends with Thomas in 2006, and when we released Aeolian, which was the first record that he was on, it was that we wanted to have a different vocalist for every song of that record. It was just a crazy idea I had at that time, which was partially born out of the necessity that we didn't have a vocalist for quite some time. And then it was just like, let's just ask our favorite vocalists of our favorite bands to sing on the record. And that's how Nate from Converge and Sean Ingram from Colis was on that record, and Thomas from Breach as well. So that was the idea back then. And then we started becoming friends, and I asked him again if he wanted to guest on Precambrian, but it was all songs that were written with no particular vocalist in mind. And this track now on Phanerozoic II, it was also not really written for him, but I had the idea to ask him to sing on that song very early, like while I was writing the song, because it's a bit of a homage to Breach in a way. You know, the guitar chords are very, very breachy, I think. And so it just made sense. It was like an obvious thought that struck me to ask him to sing again. And it's also a nice tradition we wanted to continue. And so it's of course it fits. I wouldn't give him like an electronic part, you know, and or something he doesn't, or maybe doesn't feel comfortable with, but something that fits within his vocal range and his style and his general tone and everything. And with Jonas, well, he was on the first part of the record, and his contribution to the second part was a very spontaneous thing. It wasn't really planned, because most of the vocals were already written and recorded for that album. And what happened then was that we were on tour with Leprous, and our synth player Peter, he was not on that tour. He had to stay home, and so he was still working on synths, and he came up with this new part for Jurassic Cretaceous that we all loved, but it was not working out with Loic's existing already recorded vocals, and also not with the guitars. And so we had to make a choice, and we decided to get rid of the guitars and Loic's vocals, because we loved this new arpeggio synth part and we thought it fit the song really well. And then somebody was saying, let's just send it to Jonas, because we were on tour. We didn't have the means to record something new at that time. And at the same time, right after the tour, we had the studio booked for mix. So there was the time pressure again. And we just sent it to Jonas and asked him if he wants to try something out over that part. And he really loved it, and did so, and sent us his parts back shortly afterwards. And again, it was instantly perfect. Like he really hit the nail on the head, I think, with his vocal parts over this new part in the song. And so I'm very happy that we have him on this second part of the record again.
All right. Phanerozoic I received a lot of critical acclaim and love from listeners as well. Has that reception colored your expectations from Phanerozoic II? Do you feel any sense of added pressure this time around?
I think I'm past the age where I would feel that. I'm now I'm now just dealing with it in a way that there's nothing I can do about it anyways. I don't really read much reviews anymore, but of course I follow like social media and see what people think about it. And I think the reactions to Jurassic Cretaceous have been spectacular. And as a matter of fact, I think that stream has reached more. That song has reached more streams in the first 2 weeks than any other song did previously. So people seem to love it. That's great. But I also know that this record is a challenge. In a way, I think all of our records are. You know, when we released Fog Diver in 2003, which was instrumental, that kind of like put us in a certain in a certain scene or whatever, or in a certain range of expectations. And then when we released Fluxion in 2004 with quite brutal death metal style vocals, everybody was like, what the fuck? We thought this band was instrumental. And so and that happened with pretty much every record of ours. There were always people who were saying, oh, this is not what I expected. Well, fair enough. That's kind of why we do this. And on the other hand, I think we have a very loyal tribe of fans that has been with us throughout the years, and that appreciates exactly that, the fact that you cannot really expect the same album twice, and that every record is a challenge of its own. And I think we're in a very lucky position there, because people actually appreciate that, and we could release anything and would probably get away with it.
I've always wanted to ask this to a musician or band that decides to release an instrumental version of an album. How do you intend for this music to be heard, with vocals or without vocals? And does it really bother you if the audience chooses one over the other at all?
No, absolutely not. Because I mean, the reason why we release our albums in two formats, as a vocal edition with Loic singing on the record, and as an instrumental edition on the side of it, basically, is because both have a right to exist, and both are completely different perspectives on the same thing. And that's what I love about making our records available like that. I listen to a lot of instrumental music myself, and I think when you take the vocals away, there's um, a lot of details in the music that you will notice, which otherwise you wouldn't, because we're so conditioned to pay attention to the lead vocals that as soon as you take them away, you know, like you realize, oh wow, there's like this extra guitar, this synth, and I think that's great. And even with bands where I really like the vocalists, I always appreciate to have an extra instrumental version. And I think it's just great, and it offers you a different perspective on the music. And to be fair, the mix for both records here is not identical. We did bring in extra instruments on the instrumental version that we had to take out on the vocal versions because they were just either conflicting with the vocals or making the song too busy. So, for example, there's some tracks we recorded in Yerevan in Armenia with a traditional flute and woodwinds player last year for the opening track Triassic. And some of those parts, they didn't fit on the vocal version because they were conflicting with Loic's lines. So we had to leave them out there, but we did bring them in again on the instrumental version. So it's also different music, partially. It's different mixes, you know, and I think it's really, really interesting to have that. And I'm totally fine. I mean, I'm not the singer. Maybe Loic will give you a different answer, but I'm totally fine with people choosing either version. Like if I enjoy playing instrumental sets, we have done that a few times in the past. It's a very different vibe, obviously, because Loic is very energetic, and his performance kind of like it's easier for the spark of energy to spill over to the crowd with a front vocalist, you know. So the instrumental sets, they're more distant, more yeah, it's just a totally different energy. But I do appreciate both equally, and yeah, everyone can take a choice, and it doesn't have to be the same choice every day. You know, you can listen to the instrumental record on Mondays and to the vocal version on Tuesdays if you want.
Or one in the morning and one in the evening.
Exactly. Yeah. There you go.
All right. So, Robin, we've spoken at length about Phanerozoic II. At this point, we'd like to play a song from the album. Which one should we play and why?
Well, let's do Jurassic Cretaceous because it's the most representative song of the whole record, I think. It's a 13.5 minutes track, and I think pretty much very representative of where we stand as a band in the year 2020. So let's do that.
Fantastic. Here's Jurassic Cretaceous.
You've been around for a couple of decades now, and this is your eighth album. Do you feel it's getting easier for you to write new music, or has it become harder?
Right now, I'm inclined to say it's gotten harder, and the reason for that is that I am right now in Spain, writing new music, and so I'm having the experience now that like lots of stuff isn't working as I was planning for it to work, and at the same time, I'm quite distracted by a lot of work that I have for Pelagic Records to do every day. So it's more difficult to find the time slots to really take myself away and focus on writing music. However, when I do that, when I get into the zone, then it still flows, and that will always be the case. I think what's gotten harder is like to find the time space to take myself away from my everyday life and also the label work, which has increased a lot with Pelagic Records growing over the last 2 years, especially, and not the process of writing music itself. It's mostly related to these external circumstances, like time or just technical stuff not working out. And then I really need to isolate myself to write music and have a couple of days to do nothing else, and that's becoming increasingly harder.
Okay. So this one's from one of our listeners. And it's about your album names that seem to be driven by the geological epochs or ages, as it were. So technically, you've addressed our current time in the current album. We're living in the Cenozic age, right? But given all that we're going through, the climate crisis, losing thousands of wild species, political upheaval and instability, trade wars, joblessness, growth, um, and now we're in another global pandemic. Do you think we'll ever get an album that's focused on the Holocene era?
Well, there is a track on Phanerozoic II titled Holocene, so it's happening with this record. It's actually a bonus track that is on the limited edition vinyl versions, but we also decided to release it digitally. But it's not on the regular version. So that track is already written; it's on the record, and
Awesome.
yeah. So the idea with Phanerozoic was to connect Precambrian with heliocentric. Heliocentric kind of starts where humanity came into the picture, and that happened during the Holocene, but only at the very, very end of the Holocene. Like the major part of the Holocene was still without human beings on it. So
Yep.
we've kind of like covered our duty now, and everything is there. So I think with the next record, it's time for a fresh start.
Kind of the last question, but this takes us back to an episode we did at the start of the year, where I mentioned that one of my highlights of last year in terms of live gigs was your show here in Bombay. So
Yeah.
I must ask, what are your memories of your tour, specifically from that gig and also from your India tour?
Oh, it was an amazing tour. It was really, really cool. And the Bombay show, well, I remember everything. It was only last year. It was really good vibes, high energy, nice club. Yeah, it was a really nice evening. And like the whole India tour was a mind-blowing experience. I'm very happy to say that because our first time in the country in 2014 was pretty shit. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we were really lucky. We spoke about it then, and yeah, we were really lucky with Ram, who did an amazing job with this tour, and all the shows were good. But Bombay was my personal highlight of that tour in terms of shows. But yeah, we really got to see a bit of India, and we loved it. And like the first thing we said as soon as we were back was like, let's try to come back as soon as possible. And ever since, I've been trying to make that work, but right now nothing is possible. Not just traveling to India, but like no tours are happening in Europe or in the US or anywhere. So we just have to wait this out. But be absolutely sure that we will try to be back as soon as possible.
Awesome. I really look
Fantastic.
forward to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here, man.
Yeah. So, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Robin, and really looking forward to diving more and giving more listens to the new album. So, I just want to say thanks and horns up.
Excellent. Horns up, man. Thank you guys.
Personally, I'm really excited to listen to the instrumental album now.
Yeah, check it out. It's a ride. I think this record works maybe a little better than other records instrumentally because there's a lot happening.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really enjoy that too.
That Mumbai gig, I'm guessing, Peter, is one of the most memorable gigs you've ever been to, right? I mean, it's like become one of those really, really, really special moments in your life.
Yeah, I think we've been to so many gigs at the Habitat, right? And once the Ocean went on stage, it sounded like they were somewhere else. They kind of, for lack of better term, kind of transformed the place, and everything was on point. I mean, the band, the sound. One good thing I like about the Ocean is, even when you're listening to it on whatever headphones, later just close your eyes and you go back to those moments that you saw them live. They still have that kind of energy, and yeah, man, I have goosebumps thinking about that gig right now also.
The fact that you just said no matter where you listen to it just makes me think of a really stupid promo that I hopefully somebody, some fan of the band should do. Like, take a seashell and instead of the ocean, you hear the ocean.
If Robin is listening to this or anyone else from the label, we want credits or we'll do it ourselves.
I think they'll also go like, who are these jokers? Why did we agree to give them an interview? Sorry, Robin, I apologize. We don't mean to like joke around, but I'm sorry, that was very low hanging fruit. Anyways, will we ever experience a gig like that anytime soon? That's a question that we leave the world to answer. All you listeners, here's your chance. See if you can say this along with me. Reach out to us. We are at hornsupod.com and at hornsupod on the Twitter machine. I'm at Asmohani.
And I'm a Trend Crusher.
And this was Horns Up.
Horns up, guys.